Well, it's over. It's done. The 2014-2015 San Antonio Spurs season is completely done. They've been bounced out of the playoffs 4-3 to the Los Angeles Clippers in round one. Welcome to the Spurs Roundtable powered by Project Spurs. I am Jeff Garcia, and joining beside me is Chelsea's Torres, as always, and a new guy, a new face, Ryan McCallum from ProjectSpurs.com. And of course, he'd make his debut on pretty much the worst time to record a show for Spurs fans. But I guess the big question is, how did it come to this? What happened? What went wrong?
Well, I think that having no rhythm over the course of the season has really come back to bite the Spurs. So they lost too many games that they should have won early in the year. I can count 2 Utah games that they should have won. I think most people will point to that New York game, but let's also go to Detroit, January 6th. Those are 4 games that they should have won. They end up in the 6th seed, win those games, and not only are they winning the Southwest Division, but they're the 2nd seed by a long way.
So pretty much it's just, for you, it's a mixture of regular season and perhaps postseason woes, I guess, and mistakes they made during this mini run they had. Chelsea, we know before we recorded, you were actually looking more detailed, like more statistics, more in-game stuff that the Spurs messed up on.
Well, and when you look at the playoffs mainly is what I look at, because I think the regular season has a lot to do with it as well. The Spurs didn't really even start getting their momentum until the end, right when they were the 6th seed or 7th or 8th, and they're trying to push up and get a higher seed. So I feel like they lost a lot of their momentum then. That Pelicans game really hurt the Spurs. And then, of course, when you look into the playoffs, was it Tim Duncan? He had 56% free throw shooting the whole playoffs, or for the first round.
But what gets me though is this is the same team they brought back from the championship run, with the only exception being Kyle Anderson, who didn't really get that much run. So going into this new season, this past season, I'm sorry, you're sitting there thinking, what more do they need? They brought everybody back. The chemistry should be there, but it didn't work out. Is it a situation of just playing at a high level for the past, 4 seasons, going to the Western Conference Finals 3 in a row, going to the NBA Finals 2 times in a row?
Yeah, I think they played a lot of basketball over the past few years, right? More so than virtually any team in the league. I think that caught up with them during the regular season, and I'm going to stick on that because I feel that the regular season woes and the narrative being off throughout the year really led into these postseason problems. And they were a bad road team this year, mediocre at best, right? So at home, they're scoring 107 points per game, right? And that leads them to a pretty decent 33-8 home record. You switch that onto the road, they're only scoring 99 points a game. So, and then you can see what that did to their road record, dropped them in the seedings, and then they have a difficult first-round matchup.
Let's talk about that final play in Game 7, Chelsea.
I don't want to talk about
I know you don't want to talk about it, but we got to talk about it. Was it the right play? You're down 2.
I personally don't think so.
They had 1 second left, and by the way, we see what you were doing there, Clippers clock people, starting the clock before it started, but was it the right play? Was it a lob pass to Kawhi in the basket?
I personally don't think it should have been the go-to play when you have 1 second left. Why not go for the 3? Marco was doing all right.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Go for the 3. You might as well. You have nothing to lose.
No, Ryan, you disagree, right?
I definitely disagree. It's revisionist history.
Yeah.
The Spurs were 3 inches away from dunking that ball, spreading out the court, making a very athletic play to the basket. Kawhi could have dunked that ball in. The pass was on the money. Shooters were hot, especially Marco during this past game. So they had an opportunity either way you cut it. But I think revisionist history is setting in here where we don't think that was
Chelsea?
such a solid play.
Well, I do agree with that. The only thing was, why give it to Kawhi when Kawhi wasn't even able to drive up to the basket most of the game in Game 7? Against Barnes, he was getting knocked down almost every single time. And so it was just kind of like, why go for that? Yeah. You might as well just go for the big shoot or big shot.
Right, and there's a lot of what-ifs, could-have, should-haves, but I think at the end of the day, it just came down to the little things.
Yeah.
The Spurs had 2 opportunities to really put LA in doom. Game 4, Game 6, and they squandered it.
They played horrible.
Game 4, they could have had them at 3-1 going back to LA. That would have put them, in a death sentence for LA. And of course, Game 6, that would have been the go-ahead game, Spurs advance. So when I look back at this series, and especially the postseason, I see little things. The free throw shooting in Game 6 with 12 or 21, I mean, just horrendous.
Yeah, they were awful from the stripe, right? And I think that their percentages show that. They were around 70% during the course of the year, and that dropped off. Some games they were at 50%. You can't win postseason basketball with 50%. Although I will say, in that final game, Tim Duncan was cold-blooded from the line, stepping up and drilling those 2 to tie the game, to hopefully extend their series. It didn't really work out.
All right, here's a question for y'all. How much is Pop to blame in all this?
Well,
Do you think about going to Hacker Jordan so often was a good idea?
I think it was a little overplayed. I think maybe Pop should have not done that as much, obviously, because I felt like even though we kept pushing for the Hacker Jordan, it almost was helping them in a way. And
Well,
it wasn't
especially in
helping
Game
us at
6
all.
at home, because Jordan was making his free throws.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not,
he's-
superstar
no, not
Steve
at all.
Kerr, but
No.
for him, he's on his clip, he was making some, and there was a succession of free throws where they were going in, but Pop stuck to it, and that's when Bellinelli was hot, and the Spurs had a 10-point lead in Game 6.
Right, and that's a tough call, right? Bellinelli could have continued that momentum. Again, back to the woulda, shoulda, coulda that you brought up. I think looking back, we can find a lot of things that the Spurs could have done a little bit better. I personally like the Hacker Jordan play. I think any time that you're facing a more athletic team and you have the ability to slow that
but
down.
that's the problem, though. The Spurs proved that they can beat a team that's more athletic than them last season in the NBA Finals. They went to the beautiful game. Chelsea, what happened to the beautiful game?
It was sloppy.
It was ugly game.
It was
Yeah.
a very ugly
true.
game, very sloppy. Again, I mean, when you go and look at it, free throws, missed shots, just simple, again, fundamentals, things that the Spurs do very well, and yet they could not pull it together. And again, we can go through the regular season. There were a lot of injuries this season as well.
Yeah, they
and
did,
I
yeah.
think, honestly, that might have slowed down the team as a whole.
Yeah, Tony Parker was not looking like Tony Parker
No.
that we've known. I mean, a lot of Spurs fans were up in arms about his play. Really focusing maybe a lot of their ire on him. Then there was Splitter and his calf injury. Don't forget Kawhi Leonard had a broken hand and an eye
Patty
infection.
Mills had his surgery.
Patty Mills had a surgery. So this team came back into this season hobbled.
Yeah, and all of those are true. The Patty Mills injury, not as difficult to overcome because I think Corey Joseph played fantastic
He did, yeah.
in relief of Tony Parker during that stretch. I wish we saw Corey Joseph a little bit more in this
Yeah.
at all during this postseason series. Pop was very reserved with allowing some of those deeper bench players
Like
to
him
play.
and Baines.
Him and
I
Baines,
think Baines would have done very well in the post, honestly.
He probably would have got
Yeah.
posterized a lot more, though.
Probably.
Possibly.
But I think there's a big chance, the Spurs missed a lot of offensive rebounds. A lot. And I honestly think that if Baines was down there, he could have gotten a good chunk of
Now,
those.
this was a phenomenal series. For it to go 7 games, each team went on each other's home court, coming down to the wire. It was, except for one game that the Spurs blew them out. But other than that, it was a great game. And credit to the Clippers. They did what they had to do. They defended their home court. They got the win. Okay? But again, when I was covering the team in San Antonio here at the AT&T Center, a lot of the losses, you would always hear Pop talk about the little things, the 50-50 balls, the little hustle plays.
Yeah.
And that was uncharacteristic of the Spurs. Usually they are known for making that smart plays.
Right, and this is a case where athleticism beats skill. And we saw that during the series. Like you said, the 50-50 balls seemed to always go LA's way. Those hustle plays, the fast break points, that seemed to be LA's game all series
Yeah.
long. The Spurs,
Right.
they looked tired. Like I said, I think they've played a lot of basketball, although that doesn't let them off the hook in this series. But
All right, so where do we go from here now, Chelsea? The season's over. You have quite a handful of free agents. I'm going to
agents,
get
yeah.
them all right here, Spurs fans. Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Danny Green, Bellinelli, Ayers, and Bonner. Restricted free agent is Kawhi Leonard. Now, he should be a Spur.
Right.
I mean, we should
I
cross
think
it
he's
out.
even said he wants to be a Spur for
Right.
life, honestly, or at least stay here. I think, honestly, with the Spurs, if they can get Aldridge,
She's going for the
I'm-
big
I'm-
guns. Look
I
at
know,
you.
and I'm only
Yeah,
saying this because I think there's a little bit of talk that Manu might want to retire. So if he ends up retiring,
Well, he's saying that he doesn't know yet, but the
Okay.
feeling is.
well, let's
yeah.
just say what if? What if
Okay.
Manu retires and he there's that big chunk because isn't he the highest paid player on the Spurs team?
No,
right now?
that's
Is that
Duncan.
Tim
That's
Duncan?
Duncan,
And
so
even
yes.
then, he's taken pay cuts. So say that Manu retires, so that's a big chunk right there. We can give Aldridge the pay that he wants. Tim Duncan will probably go for a pay cut
Right.
again,
And-
and this might even be his
And
last
in
year.
case you don't know, Spurs fans, I'm pretty sure y'all do. There is rumors out there that LaMarcus Aldridge has the Spurs at the top of his
kinda jumped the
list
gun.
in the free agency. But yeah, there's the LA option, LaMarcus
Yeah.
Aldridge. What do you think? Where do the Spurs go from here with this roster of free agents?
well, I mean, Kawhi Leonard's a max player. right? So the Spurs get Kawhi, put him on the books. You've got Tim Duncan, who's going to be a free agent. I think July 1st is free agency. So Tim Duncan will be.
He looks like he can go back another 2 years. I mean, seriously, he could play another couple.
Well, I think he's back. There's certainly nothing about this series.
I honestly don't have a doubt that he'll be back.
Right. There's nothing about this series, or even this season, that tells me that the game has passed Tim Duncan by.
Right.
You know, I hear this old man Riverwalk, and you know that's a fun phrase. That's a nice idiom to play, but it's just certainly not the truth. He's playing like a 25-year-old.
And speaking of Manu, I'm glad you brought him up, Chelsea. Is this it? Did we witness the final games of Manu Ginobili?
I would really hope not, but it could be. I really think so. I think he's thinking it could be, and so it kind of only sets in your mind.
Somebody asked me during the season, like, when Manu wasn't looking like Manu, and they say, when you cover them, when you see him, what do you notice him? It's that old adage: the mind is willing, but the body is weak.
Right. That's
His
exactly
mind
what
is
it
there.
is.
He wants to play, but physically, he just looks like a shell of himself. 2005 Manu Ginobili ain't coming back. Let's put it that way.
But I think he remains undecided until the Spurs have made it through free agency. If the Spurs line up one of those bigs, the coveted bigs, LaMarcus Aldridge or even Marcus Gasol, some rumors out there, if they acquire one of those players, Manu's back. I mean, because how could the Spurs not be one of the top three teams in the West at that point?
Who would the Spurs give up then?
I don't think they have to, because you have one max player, and then you'd have a new deal for Tim Duncan.
But the thing with Tim Duncan, though, is this: I would not want to see them open the bank too much for TD, or Manu Ginobili. Because they're on their final years, they can use that money, hopefully get somebody else.
But Tim Duncan's one of those players where his value is more than just basketball for this franchise. So there's very few players like that in the league. So I think that Tim Duncan would take, as you brought up earlier, would take a pay cut.
Oh, for sure. He's done it before.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so he would continue to cut into the coffers.
Well, those are our thoughts right there on the Spurs postseason run. I guess run more waltz. Limping. Okay, don't cry. You're gonna make everybody.
No.
She's get your Kleenex out. She's about to cry. But just because the season's over does not mean we here at Project Spurs, News 4 San Antonio, and Fox 29 San Antonio are done covering San Antonio during the offseason. There's the draft. There's the NBA Summer League. Rumors. Everybody loves the rumors. So don't go anywhere. So still keep on coming by and check us out. But any final words on the Spurs season? How would you sum it up? There you go. That sum it up right there. Okay.
I think this is a chapter in the book of Popovich, but it's not the last chapter.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just a little hump.
It's a little hump, yeah. And I think it's just unfortunate. That's what I would call it. Unfortunate due to injuries and just, age may have finally caught up to them. But for Chelsea Torres, Ryan McCallum, I'm Jeff Garcia. Thanks again for watching this episode of the Spurs Roundtable.